becomes more. Before we begin, a few words that really matter. So stay with me for these. Everything you are about to see runs inside an isolated lab that we own and fully control. ATTACKRX is a character. No real company is targeted and no real system is ever touched. We reveal how the attack works for one reason only, so that defenders like you can learn to catch it. Never use anything you learn here against a system you do not own or that you don't have clear written permission to test. Unauthorized access is illegal, and what you choose to do with this knowledge is entirely your responsibility. So let's use it the right way. Learn, secure, and defend. Now let's begin. 11 o'clock at night becomes more somewhere out on the internet. A single machine wakes up and quietly points itself at XCerberous, not to break in, not yet. Tonight it only wants to look, to measure, to map, because before any attacker steals a single thing, they have to answer one question first: where is the way in? This is Attack RX, and right now he is on the outside. He has no password, no foothold, nothing. In front of him is a public address range 203.0.113.0. The block of internet addresses XCerberous owns. Somewhere in that range is one forgotten door left unlocked. His job tonight is simply to find it, and the technique he'll use is the very first move in almost every real attack. Welcome back to Cyber Talks. I'm Goutham, and here we play both sides. Becomes more. Today's technique is active scanning, scanning IP blocks. In MITRE ATTACK, this is technique T1595.001, and it lives in the very first tactic on the board, reconnaissance. This is where the siege begins long before the alarm ever has a chance to ring. So let's make this simple. Picture a burglar walking down a long street at night. He doesn't know which house is empty or which door is unlocked, so he just walks. And he tries every handle, every window, quietly one after another until one of them gives. That street, that's an IP range. Each house a server. And every door and window on it, that's a network port. Scanning is nothing more than the attacker walking your street, trying every handle, and most of the time nobody's watching the street at all. Becomes more. Here's the ground tonight. The public internet, XCerberous address block, sitting on the edge, behind it a firewall, and behind that the things the company chose to expose: a VPN, a web server, a mail server. ATTACKRX can't see inside. All he can do is knock, so he starts knocking, and he needs almost nothing to do it. The classic tool is nmap. First a ping sweep, nmap-sn, across the whole range, which addresses answer, which machines are alive. In seconds, a network of silence becomes a list of live hosts. Then he picks one and opens every door. Nmap-p dash a full port scan, quietly asking all 65,000 ports, is anyone home? And then dash sv, he asks each open port what it actually is and which version it's running, alive, open, and identified. Becomes more. Now, if he wants the entire range in one breath, he reaches for masscan, which can sweep millions of addresses at brutal speed. And here's the part defenders forget: he doesn't even have to touch you. With a service like Shodan, someone has already scanned the whole internet and he can just look you up. That's passive reconnaissance. And on your side, it leaves no logs at all. Remember that it matters later. And then the payoff: the scan comes back. Most doors are shut, but on one host, 203.0.113.20 port 3389 is wide open. Remote desktop exposed straight to the internet. That right there is the unlocked door. ATTACKRX hasn't broken anything. He's just found where he'll come back tomorrow. Becomes more. So that's the reconnaissance. Now let's flip the glass and sit down inside the socks. And here is the hard part. On the security wall, everything looks fine because the internet is noise. Every server with a public address is scanned constantly by researchers, by bots, by background chaos. A single connection from a stranger means nothing. So to catch a real scan, you can't watch single connections. You need the view from the edge, your firewall's logs, your network flow data, your intrusion detection system. Without that perimeter telemetry, the scan is just one more drop in an ocean of noise. So we hunt, and the tell isn't any single knock. It's the shape of them. One normal client talks to a few services it needs. Becomes more. A scanner does the opposite. One source reaching out to many different hosts and many different ports in a very short window. We call that fan out. And once you're looking for the shape, it's almost impossible to hide. And there it is, one source address touching 250 hosts across more than 1,000 ports in 30 seconds. And nearly every one of those connections is a half open scene, a knock that never waits for an answer. No customer behaves like that. No browser behaves like that. That fan out is the signature, and that is what lights up the board. So we turn it into a rule. Becomes more. In Microsoft Sentinel using KQL We read the firewall logs, the common security log table, and for each source address, we count the distinct hosts and the distinct ports it touched inside a 5-minute window. If one source reaches more than 20 hosts or more than 100 ports, that isn't a customer, that is a scan. Same behavior in Splunk against the firewall index, the same fan out, the same counts, the same window laid out as source, host, ports, and time. Two platforms, one behavior. Now the professional note, because the real world is messy, legitimate scanners exist. Security researchers like Shodan and Sensi sweep the whole internet. Your own vulnerability scanners, Qualys, Tenable do this on purpose. Uptime monitors knock all day. Becomes more so you tune it. You exclude those known sources by address. But here's the catch, a patient attacker will use against you. He can slow the scan right down one port an hour, spread across days to slip under your window, or he can spread it across many source addresses so no single one crosses your threshold, and a passive Shodan lookup never touches you at all, which is why volume alone is never enough and why we pair it with intrusion detection signatures, threat intelligence feeds, and a trap. But first, investigation. Where did the scan come from? Is it an external stranger or an internal host that's already compromised and mapping you from the inside? What is that source's reputation and its geography? What actually responded? Which doors answered back? Becomes more. And the question that matters most, did that same source come back later and connect straight to the open port it found? Because reconnaissance is almost never the end, it's the measurement right before the break in. Your job is to see it coming. So, how do we shut this down? The most powerful move here isn't detection, it's reduction. Shrink the attack surface. Every port you don't expose is a door the attacker can never find. Never put remote desktop or file sharing straight on the internet. Put them behind a VPN. Default Denny at the firewall, so only what you truly need is reachable. Rate limit connections at the edge, feed threat intelligence blocklist to drop known bad scanners on site. Becomes more, and critically monitor your own external footprint the way an attacker would, so you find the forgotten open door before he does. And now my favorite move, deception. Somewhere in that address range, we place a machine that does no real work at all, a honeypot, or we open a single port that serves no legitimate purpose, a tar pit. No employee will ever connect to it, no customer will ever find it. Which means the instant anyone touches it, you already know their intent. That is a scanner. A single connection to that trap is one of the cleanest, highest confidence alerts you will ever build. The attacker announcing himself the moment he starts to look. Let's log this in interview style because you will be asked these. Becomes more, what's the difference between active and passive reconnaissance? What is Shodan and why does it leave no logs on your side? Which telemetry catches a scan, and what is the behavioral signature you hunt for? How can an attacker evade a volume threshold, and what is a honeypot or a tar pit? Pause the video, answer each one out loud. If you can, you own this technique. And with that, the scan is caught before the break-in ever comes. The open door is closed, XCerberous is protected. Tonight you saw how every attack begins with someone quietly mapping you from the outside, how the fan-out shape gives a scanner away, how we detect it at the edge in Sentinel and Splunk, and how a single fake machine can catch an intruder in the very first second he starts to look. Becomes more. Before you go, thank you. Truly, every minute you spend here is a minute you become harder to breach, and that is the whole point of this channel. If this made even one attack easier for you to catch, then we did our job tonight. So do a few quick things for me. Subscribe and turn on notifications so the next breakdown reaches you the moment it drops. Leave a comment and tell me which technique you want to see next, and share this with someone in the cyber world who needs it, because the more defenders who can see this coming, the safer all of us are. Thank you again for spending this time here. You've been with Cyber Talks with Goutham. Attack, detect, investigate, defend. I'll see you in the next one.